Well, our next guest says today's pause by the Bank of Canada could be good news for tenants, as landlords won't face another mortgage rate increase, at least for the time being. But what does that mean for the rental prices that are already topping the charts in Toronto? Let's bring in Nicki Skinner, a realtor with Bosley Real Estate. Nicki, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me in.
We always talk about housing in the sense of, how much it costs to buy a place, but rental is also something that you cover. And people are looking for places to rent right now, and yet prices are so high. A function of these mortgage costs, I imagine, getting passed on to, renters.
It's certainly one of the factors involved in it. We sort of have a compression situation right now on the rental market because people who were going to be buying have been stopped, right? They're tapped out. They can no longer buy, so they're looking back at rentals. Plus, particularly over the summer, September is the busiest month of the year for rentals,
right?
Because we have this huge influx of people coming, to all the different schools and things from all over the world and across the country, et cetera. Like any university town is seeing this kind of pressure on the rental market right now. So it's definitely causing a compression on the available units that we have.
What is availability like right now? Is it tough to find anything?
Absolutely. I think the current vacancy rate is 1.5%, which doesn't mean much to anybody. If you're looking and you are offering again and again and again on properties, which happens a lot, it just feels like there's nothing available of any kind. I've worked with clients who have definitely been in multiple offer situations and have offered on several properties before we can finally get something.
Multiple offers on a rental.
On the day they come out. And on my own listings as well. I have, investor clients listing their properties. Absolutely. It's just people out the door. It's nonstop.
And from the renter's perspective these days, I mean, they really have to show up, with everything. They're, a good credit score, everything in order to get a place.
I always tell my rental clients that you are applying for the job of tenant, and you have to have the best possible resume, which is your credit, your former, letters from your landlord, anything and everything that you can do. We're in a market now where people are offering a year's rent in advance.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a crazy amount of money to just go, here, have this much.
It is, because we've seen prices go up. I think we've got a graph of average prices over the past couple of years, because we did see rental prices ease a bit. There it is. During the pandemic, particularly in, big cities like Toronto, when we saw people wanting to get out of the cities. And so it was hard to attract people into some of these rentals.
For sure. A lot of landlords actually took a really hard hit during that time. Whether it's because their tenants simply could not pay, they didn't have jobs, they could not pay their rent, and landlords had to make up that loss as well. So really what we're seeing, the rise is actually not totally out of line. If you look at the historical line of rent increases, it's not completely out of line. There's a huge dip where COVID was. So I know sometimes people want to, paint the landlord as the bad guy, that they're just jacking up rents to whatever they can get, and it's, they're so mean. But they hurt a lot. And a lot of them, even with the rates that they're charging now, are not covering all of their costs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even before, they weren't, right? No. I mean, you always heard about how they were in it for just the kind of the payoff of the real estate or the property, or some were, but not so much about the monthly cash flow. That wasn't as much of a concern if they knew that, a few years down the road, they might be able to sell that property for, more than they bought it for. Yet these higher mortgage costs, I mean, you deal with buyers and sellers as well. Are you hearing from more investors these days who are thinking, I just can't make this work right now. The math doesn't make sense. I need to sell. Yeah,
I think we're going to see that a little bit more in the condo market. Overall, the condo market is softer than the freehold market right now. And I think we will start to see investors saying, even with these rents, is it still worth it? Because if we do see further increases, 7 weeks from now, there's another rate announcement. And if that happens, and their costs keep going up, if they can't cover it, they will say, it's time for me to tap out. I may not make as much as I would have a year ago, but I'm still, hopefully, seeing a profit from when I purchased, depending on when you purchased. Anybody coming up with a mortgage renewal as well is going to have to do some serious thinking.
Were the past two rate hikes in June and July, turning points at all for some of the prospective sellers that you deal with?
I don't think we've seen the full effect of that yet. And I think today, again, because there wasn't an increase, people will take a breath, step back, reevaluate over the next few weeks. We'll see, how people respond. So I think there's more to be seen there, because we haven't seen as well all of the numbers. The latest data we have is until July. August and now September, we'll see what happens, because rates shot up, rents just shot up before September.
Just very quickly, Nicki, I mean, other than presenting yourself, that tenant, as that being very capable of being a good tenant, being able to take on that job, any other tips for people if they're looking for a place, where they might be able to find a gem, or how they might be able to present themselves in the best way?
Gosh, I mean, as I say, think of it as a job. So many people are not prepared. They don't present messy paperwork. The person on the other end, quite frankly, is if they're getting multiple offers on their property, and your paperwork is, jumbled and not clear. If you're trying to rent something that you honestly cannot afford, don't. So that's something to think about. If you're offering on something in multiple offers, the more offers there are, the higher the price gets. And this goes for buying as well, but it's now happening in renting. So if there are people offering who should not be offering on that property, all you're doing is pushing up the price.